All right, so today I'm going to get into some of the Ableton 10.1 updates. There's some really cool stuff going on, and I just want to kind of dive into it for you. I'm not doing this necessarily in any particular order, so feel free to watch this video several times to grab all the little details and stuff like that. So let's get started. The first update is with Wavetable. In the past, although Wavetable is capable of some amazing sounds with some of the preset waveforms, for example, here, let's just turn this on real quick. Let's see some, how about quad saw? I'm going to turn the delay off real quick. Well, now you can drag your own wave files in here to create new wavetables. So, like I got this sound right here. So I'm curious how that will sound as a wavetable. So I'll go ahead and drag that in. And pretty cool sound that I wouldn't have been able to come up with any of the presets. Let's see what that sounds like. So that's super cool as well. So you can now drag in your own sounds into Wavetable and use those with obviously all the other features that Wavetable has. Fantastic synth if you haven't dove into it yet. The next upgrades is what Ableton has done is they have added two new plugins. The channel EQ, which is kind of like an EQ3 and an EQ8 blended. It kind of simplifies what's happening and is really, really useful just with the minimal amount of effort. So if I come over here and just look at the info view, when I hit low, what happens here is it boosts the frequency either up or down 15 dB. When boosting, the cutoff frequency is set to 100 Hertz, as you can see. And when attenuating, it is set a little bit higher, as you can see. So those little shifts are really great for mixing, and Ableton just kind of put them in with simple buttons so that it kind of automates in a very musical way. Same with the highs. If we come to the highs, as we come up, it can shelf upwards, as you can see. Right around like 8 Hertz, I think, is where it's kicking in. I'm not 100% sure. But as we lower it, what you'll see here is there's also a cutoff that's happening as well. Okay? So really, really cool for certain sounds. I don't know if this is a very good sound to test it with, but might as well just give it a shot here. So really nice, just bottom end boost, or if I want to lower the lows. The mid, now you could set the mid to wherever, it's just by default at 1.5 kilohertz. And what's kind of cool is what you can do is if you're stacking sounds, and adding layers, you could put this on the group just to kind of dial in the whole sound, the combination of sounds. So that's kind of neat. So real simple enhancements here with the channel EQ. I really like what they did with it. Just makes it super simple to just get in there and dial something in, whether you're pulling something back or doing a boost of some sort. The next is delay. So this replaces the simple delay and the ping pong delay, now everything is built into this plugin here. And I'm sure older versions, if you load older tracks, it's just going to load this delay in 10.1 with the settings that you had for the either simple delay or the ping pong delay. So there's really cool features here. So what I'm going to do is just get over here with a quick snare sound, okay? So there's our original sound. And now repitch, fade, and jump were always available, but before you had to right-click in order to find them on the simple delay. And now they are just put right up front. So repitch, simply, if I just put this in time, it'll probably be easier for me to show you what's going on when you change the pitch, all right? So let me just turn the feedback up a little bit. And okay, so that's just a little 45 millisecond delay. Let me do like a longer delay here, and then I'll kind of move this as we're going. Get the feedback up. So as you can hear, repitch does a lot of fun things with the pitch as you change the dynamic. Fade, it doesn't change the pitch, but it creates a really nice kind of sound. Now, fade and jump are a little bit different. They sound a bit different. They're pretty similar, but fade tends to use more of like a combination of digital and analog kind of features when it repeats and when the delay changes, where jump tries to go directly to whatever the change is. If I go here to time and try this out. And then we can do the same thing with fade. Turn this back up here. So a little bit different when it comes to that. Over here, we have offset. So obviously we got the left and right link, but we can unlink these and have, you know, we can have eighth note here and 5/16 over on that side and get some interesting things. And if I change this, one's going to go, this is going to kind of take it a little bit off tempo, you know, so it gives a little groove or drift to it. So as you can hear, it kind of has that little out of time, a little bit disorienting in a, what I find to be a fairly pleasant way. And then of course we have our ping pong delay, which just goes from left to right. And you could use the repitch or any other thing for left and right as well. All right. And then we have our filter. So if I turn this 100%, we can actually hear what the filter is doing. And another cool thing is it's actually, we can set modulation so that this will kind of, the filter will kind of move back and forth sort of thing from a certain spot. So get the filter up, get a little bit of rate going on here. So that it'll obviously play with the filter. But what's really cool about having the filter is you could really get very detailed on how you want the delay to show up. You know, whether you want it to be very noticeable or kind of hidden in the mix, just subtly adding some sort of extra ambience and that sort of thing. So that is the delay. Also very cool is it's got this kind of infinity function. This is such a short sound, I might have an issue trying to get that. So I'll use this sound here. Here, let me just show you the original sound. All right, and let's just kind of turn that up there. And while it's playing, I just hit infinity, and we'll have an infinite delay. Now what's really cool is that you can really mess with this delay sound, and you could send this to another audio track and like record lots of different interesting delays and things like that, and kind of go back and resample that and use it as interesting sounds. If we come over here, we could really get some interesting sounds just with, you know, obviously the time. Just really, really interesting, fun stuff. So yeah, if you just kind of play around with some sounds and play around with the delay, you can kind of record those results and really have a lot of fun with that and really completely change certain sounds. It's really cool if you're looking for something interesting to add to your track and you don't want to like go through a library of sounds. You can use sounds that are already in your track and just create a new track to just run some of those sounds through interesting delays. And you could process things in a lot of different ways, but delay is much more versatile than a lot of people give it credit for. So that is the delay unit. I hope that kind of inspires you and gets you a little excited about this new version. Next, I want to get into some of the new key commands. So in order for the key commands to work, you need to turn this off here, the keyboard. Otherwise, it's going to act like a MIDI keyboard instead of use the key commands. All right. With the key commands, we have H. So H will basically put all these tracks into a visible. Here, let me just kind of stretch that out. So if I want all the tracks to be visual, I can just hit H and it will kind of squeeze in all the tracks as close as possible. If I hit W, it'll fit everything in your track into this arrange window. So if I had more stuff going on, let me just, I can add a MIDI part over here and a MIDI part over here. And then if I hit W, it'll put all of that in the window for me. All right. Really simple stuff, but really cool. And that's also the same here in MIDI here. All right. So if we've got something like this, we can hit H and it'll show all the notes. We can hit W and it'll get to the width. So if I have something zoomed in like this, for example, if I hit W, it'll just bring everything in view. All right, so really easy to just either bring things in by width view or by height. All right. The Z and X are zoom in and zoom out. So if we've got something like this going on, you want to see the whole thing, but then you want to just kind of inspect this file right here, you can just hit Z and it'll zoom that right up, hit X, and it'll take you right back to where you were before. All right. This can also work with zoom, exit. All right. Now you can also enlarge your tracks. You just hit your Alt key and then plus and minus, make sure you're on where it's named here. And plus, you can make your track nice and large or make it a little smaller. Really, really simple stuff, all right? And now the F key reveals fades, all right? So if I come into audio part, let's zoom in here. If I hit F, you'll now see these fades here. I'm holding down the key, all right? And then we can get right to our fades, like so, all right? Range window here, or actually the session window, as you can see, is enlargeable now. So you can stretch that out. Now let's get to some of the fun stuff here. I'm gonna jump in here to like 16th notes. All right, so if we highlight a certain section here, we'll just do a 16th. Now you can right click, and as you can see, you can enter up to 10 different waveforms. Now before we do this, what I want to do is I want to use a utility instead of my volume here. And there's a couple reasons why. One, when you come back to mix, it's nice to not have any automation on this. That way you can adjust the full thing without affecting the automation, all right? But the other reason is because you don't want to be going above the 0 limit in volume when you set these automations, which it will do. Like if I right click here and set this, as you can see, it's taking it all the way up here to plus 6 dB. Let me see if I can see it here. There you go. And we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag in a utility. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this. I know this is a little tricky, but it's definitely useful. And then I'm just going to assign this to a macro. All right. Just set to 0 here. And then I'm going to go to map. And as you can see, it's got a plus 25 here, or plus 35. You're just going to set that to 0. Great. And that's all you need to do there. And now, when I set this, this here is now 0 dB, as you can see. So it's not raising the volume. And then what we can do is we can just highlight and duplicate this if we want. Then maybe right click over here. And let's do a triangle here, and maybe some square stuff over here. All right, cool stuff. And now if I play this, really easy to do like some really interesting things. And now what you can also do is you can highlight a section here, and this is where you're noticing these little squares here. You can, one, you can shorten it. So you can kind of time stretch what's happening here, which is really cool. You could also change the volume. So you create kind of more like a fade out sort of thing, or you can, there we go. More like a fade in. If we bring it back here, kind of have something like this, and then something like that. And it's kind of like a mirror effect here. So loads of cool stuff that you can do with automation, and it's just a matter of selecting the area you want, choosing the shape, and then you could either duplicate that or move this to shorten to really create some really interesting kind of LFO type volume. Really good for dubstep and those types of bass lines and things like that as well. So really, really cool editing that's been added to Ableton. Next, we get into a cool feature here. If you're setting stems, for someone to remix, oftentimes when you come here, especially if they're not using Ableton, you would be able to export. Actually, I'm not going into preferences, I'm going into export. You normally be able to do individual tracks, but the problem with that is you get all the tracks without any, if you have return tracks adding effects, those return tracks are sent separately. So all the sounds from all your return tracks are sent as just one effects track. Now what you can do is include the return and master effects onto each individual track. That makes it much easier for someone to get your track sounding the way that each individual track is supposed to sound, which is going to be much easier for remixing and things like that. So yeah, you just simply turn this on and you're all good. Obviously by default, it's at master, so you just want to go to individual tracks. All right. And last but not least, what you'll notice here is we have a Sidechain Compressor here. And in older versions of Ableton, we weren't able to freeze any tracks that have sidechain on them. Now that has changed, and we can freeze that track with no problem at all. Now you can sidechain away and not have to worry about whether you can freeze your tracks or not. So those are some of the new features in Ableton 10.1. I hope that you got something out of this. Feel free to watch this over if you missed some stuff. And as always, make sure to comment below if you got any questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications. I'm always coming out with new stuff. And if you're on Facebook watching this, just make sure to share this with a friend, tag a friend if you think someone can use this information. Make sure to like the page just so that you can follow what we're doing in there. All right, guys, I hope you have a great one, and I'll speak to you guys real soon.